Autumn is approaching, and that can only mean one thing. It's football season, and it's time to play fantasy football. Lucky for you, you are right where you need to be. So sit back, relax, and turn up the volume on your streaming device. Johnny Ballgame, Sir Poops-a-Lot, and the Fantasy Reaper are about to deliver humor and fantasy gold at the same time. Crush your opponent with a smile. It's Fantasy Sports Island.
Welcome back to Fantasy Sports Island. Our boys are here. Ladies and gentlemen from WKRP in Cincinnati, Johnny Ballgame.
What's up? Maybe we'll do the turkey drop. Maybe we'll do that from WKRP in Cincinnati.
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
John, is that a reference for the kids?
Yeah, because the kids really know WKRP in Cincinnati.
They do.
That's
not. Tony, Sir Poops-a-Lot. What's up, my man?
What's up with you guys? Good to see you.
How we doing tonight, Tony?
Not going to say anything. Pretty good. Pretty good.
Good enough, huh? Good enough.
Good enough.
And welcome back to the show, the fantasy antagonist himself, Keith. What's up, my man?
Hey, what's going on?
Johnny, is cock coughing you right now? I believe that's what I'm saying. He didn't want you to cough. So
I don't know. What the hell, Johnny? Come on, man.
CC, baby. CC. COVID cough. All right. Welcome to the show, ladies and gentlemen. We are the inventors of the PPR. We welcome you to the program. John, what I want to do is now that we've already established that PPR is like the standard across the world, can we get them to incorporate our scoring for the quarterback position so that maybe people in your draft might take a QB in the first round?
Yeah, I mean, at least in the second round, like late first round, early second round, when you value the quarterback, because the quarterback's the most valuable position in football, it should be valued and honored and treated as such. So, yeah, people finally got smart and did our PPR league. Now maybe they'll finally get smart and do our quarterback system rankings. It's just more fun when they score more. I don't know why people are against a lot of scoring. I don't get it.
I mean, when you're building a Super Bowl team in the NFL, the most important position is the quarterback. Am I wrong? Why wouldn't you want that to correlate with fantasy football? Exactly. Keith, you've played in several leagues for many years. I know you played in leagues where you're used to taking running backs first or wide receivers. Is it different? Have you gotten used to our format where you consider a quarterback in the first round?
Oh man, it's definitely different. But I like the challenge of the different scoring format, and like you said, quarterbacks are meaningful in the NFL. So why shouldn't they be meaningful in fantasy? So let's go.
All right.
Yeah. So a lot of leagues, the way they make them meaningful is to have the 2 quarterback leagues or a super flex where you can play a quarterback, and that's not really realistic. You only have one quarterback that's going to throw the passes for you. So let's try to mirror that like the NFL and just make your quarterback score more points, make them more valuable. So, all right, Tony, I want to talk to you about Joe Burrow because Joe Burrow is back throwing the football in practice, back from his appendectomy. Do you still think that Joe Burrow is going to have his banner season this year?
Yeah, I think so. I've been doing a lot of reading and research. I'm getting ready to have minor surgery myself. Well, at some point, so I'm looking at like, what about like an appendectomy? Like, how bad is that? So they're talking about how it actually burst. He didn't really know, he wasn't having a tremendous amount of pain, and they're talking about how it's somewhat invasive, but they can take care of it. They're ahead of it, and he's already out there. So guess what I'm getting at? Johnny might know this, that I always heard that if your appendix bursts, that it's going to be a worse surgery. It's more dangerous, so on and so forth, longer healing time, whatever. And Joe Burrow came out of it pretty much squeaky clean. So we already know the talent. We already know what he was going to do before that. It sounds to me like he's fine. So I'm getting excited.
Yeah, John, can you attest to that? That if your appendix does burst, does that add more recovery time?
It absolutely does. Yeah. So I was lucky. Mine got taken out right before it burst. They actually said as they were taking it out that it burst, which was really creepy to hear. But they said that if it's bursts inside of you, it's like basically poisons and toxins are being put into your system, and it's a much longer recovery. But I mean, it's Joe Burrow. He came back from a knee injury and played the way he played last year. So I really think he was going to take a long time to recover.
Yeah, stop hyping up Joe Burrow, the fantasy antagonist. We'll snipe him from you, John.
Antagonist is like, who are you taking again? Who are you taking?
All right,
I think he fooled me last year. He was talking up who was it? Dak Prescott a lot last year.
Yeah,
and then I ended up taking him. So
fishing, little
fish line, hook.
This year he's not listening to me at all. Keeps like,
yeah, no, I'm like, nope. Nope.
All right. Let's get on to some more NFL news and notes. I just wanted to start with Joe Burrow because of the Ohio connection we have with some of our cast members here. But let's talk about the never-ending saga, which is finally ending. The NFL and the NFLPA have reached a final settlement with Deshaun Watson. They agreed on Watson missing 11 games this season, and he will be fined $5 million, and that will be that. So it's finally over. Now we know what we're dealing with. I don't think Deshaun Watson is draftable in redraft leagues, but maybe in the best ball format. What do you think, Keith?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, a lot of the head-to-head leagues, you're not. I mean, it's kind of pointless. He's not going to be back till week 13 because I think they got to bye. So it just doesn't make sense. But I did find it really interesting that the week 13 that he comes back is against Houston, of course. So I think they planned that really well. But as far as like drafting him, I might take a flyer on him in like a best ball or maybe even a total points league, but you got to hold on to him for 13 weeks. That's just not feasible.
And in most leagues, you're not going to be able to stash him on your IR because he's not injured. So I'm not going to touch him. I'll let other people do that. If they want to hold a roster spot, I will not be one of them. I don't even think I'd play him in best ball formats. You have 20 roster spots. I'm not going to waste it on Deshaun Watson, who will play, 5-6 weeks? 5 weeks, right? 5 weeks because the last week doesn't count. So, all right, let's move on to the next news and notes. We got head coach Todd Bowles was non-committal on when he expects Tom Brady to return to the Bucs. But the expectation is that he will be ready for week 1. When I first heard this story, I thought Brady was just going to take care of something real quick and be right back. Turns out it's not that minimum. He's going to be out at least till the next preseason game is over and possibly more beyond that. John, are you starting to worry about Tom Brady's fantasy status?
Yeah, I'm kind of worried about the whole Buccaneer team. Like, it just seems like they're kind of disintegrating in front of our eyes. Like, it's weird, man. But yeah, I mean, listen, he's Tom Brady. I mean, he's going to come back. He's going to play pretty well, and his receivers are all recovering. I heard Julio Jones is looking fantastic, which is crazy. But yeah, I'm a little bit worried about the Buccaneers to start, but I think at the end they'll finish strong and do whatever the Buccaneers always do.
Yeah, Julio Jones looks great, but Tom Brady's not throwing him passes. They're not developing that chemistry. Not that they can't develop it over the year, but I'd sure like Tom Brady to be throwing him passes right now when it's most important. But I'm a little worried about this situation. Tony, what do you think? Do you draft Tom Brady, let's say within the first 4 rounds?
First 4 rounds? I mean, there's still we're going back to the Tom Brady thing. It's like, 10 years ago, I said, dude, don't draft him. And he's still incredible. So I don't want to kick myself in the ass by missing him. But I agree with what you said. And I do worry about a little bit about what's going on behind the scenes also. Is there something, like we were talking about the past couple weeks, there's something else going on here that we don't really know about? So that does make it a little riskier to be drafting him that quick. If I can avoid him as my number one QB, I'm going to. But if I have to take him when you get to like the 4th or 5th round, I would definitely consider it.
By the way, in our scoring system, Tom Brady was the number 1 scoring quarterback last year. Let's not forget that. All right, let's talk about Zach Wilson. He had his meniscus surgery, and it was like a trim of the meniscus. It went well. They still suspect 2 to 4 weeks. His week 1 is in question. I think it's kind of optimistic to feel like he would play in week 1, but he should be back shortly thereafter. Now, I know we're not really probably going to draft Zach Wilson in a redraft league, but in dynasty leagues, it's good news. But I think it's more good news for the overall health of the offense if you're talking about Elijah Moore and my boy Breece Hall. What do you think, Keith? Do the fantasy prospects look brighter now that we know Zach's okay?
Well, the thing is if I was Zach, I don't think I'd want to be there for the first week. The first week they play against Baltimore. No, I'll let Joe Flacco do that one. Yeah, you go do your thing. I'll be recovering for next week. So yeah, I think I have some weird feeling about the Jets, man. I kind of like what they've got building, but the problem is I think it's a few years out. I think these pieces have got to gel. Breece Hall. You've got the Garrett Wilson. They've got a lot of pieces here, but it's going to take some time to gel.
Yeah, I hate he's missing this important time. Like, to me, like, this feels like really crucial time to be missing with those guys.
Yeah, we thought it was important for Tom Brady to gel with Julio Bones. What do we think about Elijah Moore and the kid from Ohio State gelling with Zach Wilson right now? That's even more important. These guys are all young. And plus, you want Zach Wilson. There's a lot of talk about him having a huge arm, and he's very mobile. And if he can develop chemistry with receivers, it opens up the running game for Breece Hall. I just think good things could happen. But like he said, we might be a year away from actually explosion of the Jets offense. So we'll see. All right, next bit of news. Let's check it out. We got Aaron Rodgers. He went on a show and ranted, actually an interview. He ranted about his young wide receivers. He wasn't talking about the veterans there. He was talking more specifically about Romeo Doubs and Christian Watson, how they were dropping passes, and it was irritating him. So the wide receiver group met with Rodgers the following day to kind of clear the air. Tony, is this just Rodgers being a dick yet again?
I don't. It kind of sounds like it. I'm not there, but it does. I think he just convinced them to take like some magic mushrooms with him, and it probably burns and got it over with, and they all hugged it out. I think it sounds like he's being a little douchey, a little arrogant as usual. I mean, come on, it's still a little bit early. I don't think it was necessary for it to get to the media anyway. So we'll see. It's Aaron Rodgers.
Was that an Ari Gold reference? Hug it out, bitch.
Right.
That's fantastic. John, tell me what you think. First of all, do you like Romeo Doubs? Because he's been flashing in the preseason from all the reports. But then you hear Rodgers bitch about him.
Flashing, but I think he's a rookie, right? And so all of a sudden the young guys are starting to look like young guys, and I think that's pretty normal in camp. I remember a couple of years ago there was everybody was like, "Oh, Rodgers loves this guy in preseason. He loves him." I think he caught like 8 passes through the whole season. So I don't really listen to the. I still think it's what's his face is going to be their main guy, not Watkins, but Lazar. Yeah. But I kind of didn't mind this for some reason. Like I'm not a Rodgers lover, as we all know. Like he kind of pisses me off in those cases. I kind of didn't mind this. I kind of felt like it was like a message to the young guys that just because you're highly drafted or you're highly thought of, you're still going to go out there and work your ass off. And so I didn't mind it.
Yeah, I think he's just kind of like.
Yeah, I think it's funny that all these rookies are just so awesome the first couple of weeks, of this thing. It's like, okay, well then they put pads on and then they got to play games and suddenly they're dropping balls. Of course, they're not used to all this extra stuff that they're doing there, and he's got high expectations, as he should.
Yeah. Also, good point. Jamar Chase dropped a lot of balls in preseason last year too.
Yeah, he did.
It turned out okay. It turned out all right.
All right, John, I want to come to you with this news. This is old news, but I just want to check in with your thoughts on Jameis Winston. He's been dealing with a nagging foot injury. He is back. Do you think this is something to worry about for fantasy purposes?
I mean, I'd worry a little bit about it, and I'd worry more if the, fantasy Elmo hadn't looked so good last week with Dalton, the backup quarterback, actually coming in and looking really pretty good. And he was, how I really like the fact that I think he is the human version of Elmo. So he's out there like,
you can barely hear it.
The sound went out on you, John. I'm sorry.
I couldn't even hear it.
Oh, it's the last plan in your own.
So again.
John was trying to bless us with some Elmo, and Zoom said, "Nah, not today, not today."
Yeah, Zoom's
All
like,
right.
"Fuck you." You don't have permission to do Elmo's voice.
All right.
AFC South Fantasy Breakdown.
Tonight's show, we're going to talk about the AFC South. We're going to do a little fantasy breakdown of those, and we've divided it up amongst each person, doing one team each. John, you're going to take the Tennessee Titans this evening, and the Titans are the number one ranked, according to Vegas, to win this division. Then I'll take the Colts, who are supposed to finish second. We got the Jaguars, and that'll be you, Tony. And then, Keith, you can finish us up with the Houston Texans. So let's go to you, John, and talk about the AFC South champions from last year. Will they repeat, and what do you like fantasy-wise on the Titans?
I don't know if they'll repeat. I like them to be in the hunt still because I still think they're a pretty talented team. I think the loss of A.J. Brown was giant. I expected when I looked at Tannehill's stats to kind of be like, but I mean, the guy's, he's been solid since he started there in 2019. He's like third in PFF passing grade. He's like seventh in passer rating among 52 quarterbacks. He's tied for sixth in yards per attempt. He's 11th in adjusted percent. He can play quarterback. He's a pretty good quarterback. And last year he got a bad rap because, A.J. Brown was out for 4 games. Julio Bones was out for 6 and never effective. He was playing with a bunch of guys nobody ever heard of. Oh, and by the way, his major star running back, who used to take all the attention away, was also out. So the fact that they got to the playoffs last year, I think Tannehill should get way more credit than he gets, the fact that they won the division. So I like Tannehill. I'm not going to rush out and draft him as my number one. I'd probably stream him as the number 2 or, emergency quarterback. He's probably in the 18 to 24 range, probably. I'd probably take him right at that 19th quarterback, 20th quarterback, but he's serviceable. If you go by the hero running back, want to get major receivers, and you want to wait a little bit on a quarterback, do I think you could win some games with Tannehill? I do. I don't think he's going to be the best quarterback in the league, but I think he's got top 15 potential. Let's just say that. So, then you go to the running back, and to me, I think Derrick Henry is going to have a monster bounce back year. He was the best running back in football, even through 9 games last year. He was the number 1 fantasy running back until he went down, and then Taylor sort of took over the mantle after that. So, that guy is unbelievably amazing. I don't know what else to say about Henry. He's just a phenomenal guy. I actually don't think they pass him the ball enough. He actually has great hands, catches it well. The only worry for me about Henry is just the number of carries that he's had, just because he's been a workhorse his entire career from high school on up. But I do think last year the injury actually could be a blessing in disguise. I think his I think the fact that he got to rest all year and he kind of came back a little bit. I'm not worried about the foot. I think that's going to be fine. I will say this, though. If you get Derrick Henry, handcuff Hassan Haskins from Michigan. That kid, really talented, has a real similar running style. If he goes down, Haskins is the guy, not Dontrell Hilliard. So make sure that you get Haskins as your handcuff. And that guy's coming off as a running back 49, and nobody knows anything about him hardly. So he will definitely be drafted, and he will definitely be a handcuff. And if you have Henry and don't get Haskins, you're probably going to be sorry just in case. So my receiver group, man, this is a real shot in the dark here. I mean, Bobby Trees comes over from Los Angeles. He was good last year in Los Angeles until he got hurt. I mean, he was fine. He wasn't great. He was fine. But he's got speed. He's got, I actually really like him to have a little bit of a bounce back year. Treylon Burks is the rookie that came out that is literally built exactly like A.J. Brown. And they're going to miss A.J. Brown's 17.4 PPR points per game. Like, I mean, that's a big matzo ball to replace right there. So will Treylon Burks replace him exactly? I doubt it, but if he even gets 3/4 of his production, he's still a pretty good fantasy receiver. And I think he's definitely a good person to take a chance on. So I would go with him for sure. And then from a tight end, I like Austin Hooper coming over. I think that's actually a nice move. He got kind of lost in Cleveland because they had so many tight ends. But I think Hooper, when he was with Atlanta, was a really good tight end, and I think he actually still has some of that skill, some of that speed left. So I like them. I don't think I would use the defense. The defense is fine. It's good if you're streaming defenses, but it's not one I would draft early. I'd probably wait and stream them.
All right. Yeah, I told you this earlier in the season, the preseason. I think the Titans made a huge mistake. They had A.J. Brown, and they trade him and draft a guy that is his replica. And the basically the ceiling for Treylon Burks is A.J. Brown, but you already had A.J. Brown. So what are we doing?
Already had A.J. Brown in his prime, like he was
in his prime, still young. And let's not forget, this team took the Bengals and gave them everything they got. They would have got to the AFC Championship. So I don't understand the move, but we'll see. I mean, I'm out on Burks. I've heard too many. I don't like the juju I'm hearing from camp. So I'm out. But dynasty wise, I think he's a long-term good play. Yeah. But all right, good breakdown of the Titans. Anybody else have anything to add to the Titans?
No, I think you're right on with Bobby Trees, man. I like him a lot. I think he's going to lead the receivers there.
Yeah,
that guy's good for 1,000 yards every year. And if he can put some touchdowns together, 5-6 touchdowns, it would be a good season.
The productive receiver, right? Yeah, if you got him as a number 2 or number 3, you're feeling pretty good. Again, I talk about this all the time, but my theory on later round receivers is take good receivers on shitty teams. Also take a chance on receivers that you don't think are going to be that great, but are probably still the number 1 receiver. Those are still better to get in the later rounds than a second or third receiver that you're not sure how that breakdown is going to go. So,
great.
Good point, Keith.
All right, let's move on to the Indianapolis Colts. I'll take the Colts. So the Colts swapped out Carson Wentz for Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan is a more accurate passer and a better decision maker than Wentz. And more importantly, I think they like him and respect him as a leader, something that I probably can't say about Carson Wentz. Ryan finished as the quarterback 23 in points per game last year, which is pretty bad. That's lower than Carson Wentz, lower than Goff, Tannehill, even lower than Daniel Jones. That's how low he was. However, I expect Ryan with this offense to finish as a borderline quarterback 1, possibly like a high-end quarterback 2, somewhere in that range. With the Falcons, he had the worst wide receiver core possibly in the history of the NFL, so he didn't have much to work with there, and he did the best he could. But with this team, he's going to have some weapons. They've drafted Alec Pierce, Paris Campbell in the slot, up-and-comer Michael Pittman. You got Jonathan Taylor blowing up the running game, keeping the defenses honest, and you have Naheem Hines coming out of the backfield, who's a very good pass catcher. So I like his weapons. Ryan's also very good at dumping the ball off. So Ryan's not going to win you the league, but he would be a good quarterback 2 to have on your roster to play in certain streaming matchups. So we'll see how that goes for him. Jonathan Taylor, everyone's number 1 starting running back, number 1 pick in the draft. As a matter of fact, in almost every league, it's simple. He's the safest pick. He doesn't get hurt. He didn't get hurt in college. He hasn't gotten hurt in the pros. He's the leading rusher in the NFL, and he can catch some balls too. My only concern with him is what Frank Reich has been talking about with Nyheim Hines. He's been really talking him up, talking about how they want to get him, a bunch of catches and also use him to spell Jonathan Taylor. Now, I don't know how much he's going to spell Jonathan Taylor when Taylor's on a roll, but with Matt Ryan, who does like to dump the ball, I could see Hines in more packages, and that worries me just a little bit for Jonathan Taylor. But I mean, let's be real. Jonathan Taylor's a freaking beast, led the NFL in broken tackles, yards after being hit, all that stuff. He's a very good running back, and it's the safe play at number one. You pick him and you build your team around him. I believe Michael Pittman is about to break out at the wide receiver position. Matt Ryan loves to support wide receiver ones in his career. He did it with Roddy White, then Julio, and then Calvin Ridley, and I think he's about to do that with Pittman. I like the draft pick of Alec Pierce. He's a big guy. He's going to take over that T.Y. Hilton role and is going to see some shot plays down the field. I like him in best ball, but I don't think he should be drafted in shallower redraft leagues, probably. Maybe 15 rounds. You're probably not taking Alec Pierce. But in Dynasty, you can get him, and he could be someone that in the next couple of years could break out. Also, don't forget about Paris Campbell. He's going to be in the slot year 3, the breakout season for wide receivers. He's finally healthy. So I kind of like the weaponry around Ryan. There's some explosiveness. Also, let's not forget, Tony, about the 7'8" Mo Alley Cox at tight end. He's still there. And you know what's funny, Tony, is Jelani Woods, who's even more, he's larger than freaking Cox. I mean,
is he? I didn't know that.
He's bigger than Cox. He's taller than Cox. So I think Cox will have an uptick in targets and touchdowns this year, but I also think that Jelani Woods could steal some of those red zone targets, and therefore I don't think either one's really draftable. But if one of them were to get hurt, I see some value in that tight end position. But yeah, that's all I got about the Colts. Their defense is solid. In fantasy purposes, they're probably a top 10 defense. But yeah, that's all I got.
Isn't it funny how similar they are to the Titans, though? Like literally the breakdown we just gave was almost identical. Quarterbacks aren't going to win you something, but serviceable in streaming, unbelievably amazing running backs, receiver core. I like the Colts receiver core just a little bit better. I like the tight end on the Titans a little bit better. I think those two are going to be just battling each other all year for number one in that division.
Yeah, I agree. Anything else to add on the Colts?
No, I think you brought up a good point about the Carson Wentz thing. Matt Ryan is more of a leader, and I think that's what has always been a struggle for Carson Wentz, is getting and earning the respect of the team. He's not a god-awful quarterback, but he just doesn't seem to be a leader. So I think Matt Ryan's really going to improve that team.
I agree. I think that just the fact that people will listen and follow him helps the overall vibe of the team. And he, Matt Ryan, despite last year's stats, Carson Wentz is more of a risk taker and careless with the ball, whereas Matt Ryan is less careless with the ball. And so a team that runs the ball really well and doesn't turn it over and has a good defense is a contender. So that's why I like the Colts to win that division this year. Like John says, he didn't think the Titans would win it this year. I kind of agree. I think it's going to be the Colts.
No.
All right. Jaguars were picked 3rd by Vegas in this division. That is your team, Tony. Well, not really, but you have to talk about them. So tell me what you like fantasy-wise.
Well, I'm going to try my best here to obviously not to throw all the negatives out to you. You guys can figure that on your own. I think the best part about this team is, that first kickoff that you see week 1, you're going to look over and there's not going to be any Urban Meyer there. And like his little khakis and stupid shirts, all arrogant, thinking he's better than everybody else. He's an awful coach. That's the best part. So who's up next? Okay. So for me personally, I'm going to start with Trevor Lawrence. Again, he's not going to be your number 1 QB. I kind of like the kid. I still think he has potential. It was a struggle last year for him. I like his attitude. He's shown some signs of life. Some strengths in camp right now. He's been above average, so that's positive. The bad part is I don't even know if you're really going to want him as your QB2. But then again, maybe there's some QBs I think you can get as your second QB that might be better than him. And the only reason I'm putting him down for that is because of the weapons that are around him. He's got a decent running team. I'll start with running backs. We all know Robinson's coming off of an injury, and so is ATM. And now I call him ATM all the time because of you.
Nice.
Chuck. But
love it.
I like Travis Etienne, but James Robinson is also the seasoned veteran who he's good. He's a hell of a running back. So I don't know how they're going to do this, but it sounds like both guys are going to be ready for week 1. So do I think Etienne can take the lead role 6-8 weeks from now? Absolutely. Is it going to get to that point? I don't know. So that makes those guys kind of risky to draft also, because you want to make sure you're getting one that's going to be fed the ball the most. And that, to me, is a little bit up in the air. And then you got the wide receiver issue. Marvin Jones is always, maybe a third wide receiver on your roster. He does have some big games. He's been around the league for a long time, so he can pull out a game or two that is quite exciting. But when do you know to put him in? So I don't really advise having him or somebody like Zay Jones on your roster. Christian Kirk, that pickup, that's not bad. I like that guy. But like I said, again, I don't even know if I'd have him as my number 2 right now. So, but we could take Johnny's advice on this. One of those guys are going to be number 1. I'm kind of moving towards Christian Kirk being the number 1 wide receiver there. And it kind of sounds like he is. So maybe you can grab him in an extremely late round and he's going to have a good season. I don't know. Then you're going to go to the tight end situation with Evan Ingram. And we all know how we all feel about that guy. A few years ago, we thought he was going to be like a top 5 tight end for the next 10 years. And he has just fallen off. So is, that game plan and Trevor Lawrence going to make, Ingram number 1 tight end? I highly, highly doubt it. So from there, it just continually dwindles. Their defense has shown some signs of life also. But you're talking about what? A number 23, 25 defense. Offensive line has not looked very good. They're struggling against their own defense. And some of the inner squads, it was like, I was watching some videos the other day, and it looked like those dudes on the offensive line, even some of the starters, looked really shaky. It's early, it's hot, but they've been getting banged around in preseason also. So it worries me for the team. So for them to even actually possibly have more wins than the Texans, some people think they will. Like I think you said number 3 out of Vegas. I don't know, man. I almost like the Texans better. So that's all I got to say. Not much, not a lot of positives there for that team.
I liken the backfield in Jacksonville to like a poor man's version of the Lions backfield. I feel like Etienne's going to be used like the Swift role, and then Jamal Williams will be James Robinson, right? James Robinson is going to do the between the tackle work, and they're going to try to get the ball in pass catching situations as much as possible to Travis Etienne. The problem is the offensive lines are 2 different animals. Lions have a great one, and the Jags don't. So we'll see how that plays out. James Robinson coming off a torn Achilles scares the shit out of me.
Yeah,
I don't trust that. So I do like the ATM machine to get a lot of touches. Keith, what do you think? Is this the ATM year?
No. I think he's going to have a lot of catches. Like you said, I think he's going to be the pass catching running back in that system. And they're going to be behind a lot. So they're going to have to play catch up a lot.
Good point.
PPR, I like him. But as far as a number 1 or even a number 2, I'll stay off him. There's other people, running backs. RB3, I'll take him, or a flex, but not as an RB2. I'm still worried about the situation there. Just too many mouths to feed as far as running backs. I just don't like it.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. I like ATN out of the backfield just because Trevor Lawrence has familiarity with him. Trevor Lawrence's best football is played with ATN. He's familiar with him. He'll throw him, and like Keith just said, they're going to be behind a lot. And I agree with Tony. I think this is actually the 4th team in the division. I don't know how Vegas is picking them over Houston. I like Houston's got better pieces. Kind of forgot about a receiver though. Laviska Shenault is still on this team.
Yeah.
Completely forgot about that guy. So to me, it's Christian Kirk and the rest of them. because they all kind of, you put them in a box and shake them up and it all feels pretty much the same thing. Christian Kirk's got a shot. He got paid like a number one receiver, and he's got a shot to actually become one. So I think he's probably the only receiver I might take a shot on really late in the draft.
It's funny that you say Christian Kirk and the rest of them. Christian Kirk used to be the rest of them.
I know.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, how he's supposed to be the man there? I don't know.
I mean, Zay Jones last year when the Raiders were struggling for receivers still couldn't separate and make a name for himself.
But Zay Jones is a freaking wizard. Have you seen the videos of Zay Jones coming up from the ground without using his hands? Have you seen these videos?
He's incredible.
Oh.
It's wizardry at best.
Dude, he's definitely an athlete. He just has never gone anywhere. But he's
why can't he just like float and catch a ball? Like,
that's what I'm saying. If he was a wizard, he would catch every ball.
Right. All right. We have to talk about the Houston Texans, and Keith, that's you. So lay it on me, brother. Tell me.
This is a little bit of hazing, Keith, because you're not on the show very often. So we gave you the Houston Texans. You're welcome.
Yeah, there you go. No, actually, you know what? It's funny because I'm going to actually say some really good things about Houston Texans, and it's going to be odd and weird and kind of feel funky. But they were third in this division last year. I actually think they can push the Titans for the number 2 position in this year. Here's some stats for you. Davis Mills, the last 5 games of last year, he's averaged 40 points per game in our system. Okay, that puts him at QB 11. So all you guys are talking about QBs that can't be on your number 1, maybe number 2. Houston's got a QB that might be pushing for QB 1, fringe RB QB 2 here. So he's got some really good stats. Last five games, put up 250 yards, 2 touchdowns per game. Some really good stuff coming from him. The good thing about the team itself is that their defense sucks. It's by far the worst defense in the league. By all accounts, everywhere you look, everybody ranks them as the worst defense in the league. Now, because of that, they've got some great potential to put up some numbers and get these dogfights. You've got some good running backs here, and when I say good running backs, I mean Marlon Mack thinks he's the shit. So he thinks he's the number 1 running back, and he's going to try to be the number 1 running back. But there's another guy there named Dameon Pierce.
Mm-hmm.
This guy can ball out. This guy is Arian Foster 2.0. I'm telling you right now, Arian Foster 2.0. Just watch him play.
That is a hot take right there, brother. That is a hot take.
Yeah, there's a hot take for you.
I agree that he's talented, but man, Arian Foster 2.0, whoo!
He's my number 2 running back in dynasty leagues as far as rookies coming off the board. I think he can finish as the number 1 rookie running back this year. I just think he's in a good system. As far as their offensive line, they definitely have improved. They got some help in off-season, free agency, and also the draft. They drafted a big dude named Keon Green from Texas A&M. The dude's a beast. As far as wide receivers, you've got Brandon Cooks, good old faithful, man. That guy's good for 1,000 yards, 1,100 yards, and 6 touchdowns guaranteed. Now, there's another really good wide receiver coming up, Nico Collins. Look out for that name. It's somebody that's probably not being drafted too high. I think he's wide receiver number 60 coming off draft boards. Dude had 44 yards last year, just 1 touchdown, 33 catches. Dude's from Michigan. Dude is 6'4", 215 pounds. He's a beast. That guy's going to put up some numbers. Look out for that guy. Unfortunately, I really did like the guy from Alabama, John Mechie.
Yeah.
He's out for acute leukemia. Prayers go out to him that he's going to recover easily. Good dynasty stash, maybe something you might want to look for in the future. And then their tight end, Bevan Jordan, I think. Yeah, Bevan Jordan. Not good. He's a blocking tight end. I'm not going to catch very many passes at all. But like I said, I think there's going to be some shootouts here. I think they're going to be some close games, mainly because their offense is going to keep them in the game. That's how I feel about the Houston Texans.
I love Dameon Pierce. As you know, Keith, we're in a dynasty league together. I had the 11th overall pick in the first round, and I got Dameon Pierce, and I was super stoked to get him there. I didn't think he'd fall.
I was trying so hard to trade up and get him. Nobody wanted to trade, man. I was trying everything. I
took him over Breece Hall?
Well, Breece Hall was first, obviously.
Oh, okay. All right.
I mean,
okay.
come on.
He went 11. He went 11 in the rookie draft. Number 11.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I watched that preseason game last week, and I came away going, that's their number one running back. That guy's he'll be, if he doesn't start as number one, he will be by game 2. Like, he looked awesome.
I think they're going to try to establish Marlon Mack first.
Why?
But Dameon Pierce is so much more talented, and he'll win out. It'll just take time.
Yeah.
Especially if they, like you said, they suck really bad and they go 0-3, 0-4, 0-5. They're going to start playing their youngsters. So I'm excited about Dameon Pierce.
I am too. I also, Keith, I thought your call about Nico Collins was really good. I think him and Mills will grow up together, kind of like Aikman and Irvin did. Like I see that group growing together with Pierce now. Like, doesn't that feel a little bit like how Dallas sucked so bad, and then they got those 3 pieces, and then they started putting pieces around them? I kind of feel that way about Pierce, Mills, and Nico Collins.
Yep.
All right, maybe the Texans could be fantasy relevant this year. I like it. All right, cool. Pop quiz time, Johnny. I didn't put this on your agenda because I want to just get your natural gut reaction. I'm going to start with you, John.
Interesting.
Who would you draft? These are similar ADPs. Quarterback Lamar Jackson or Kyler Murray?
Jackson. Come on, that was a stupid question.
Was it?
You know Keith, how I feel about Kyler Murray.
Keith, Lamar Jackson or Kyler Murray?
Kyler Murray all the way.
Okay. Tony?
Lamar Jackson.
All right, so we have 2 Lamar Jacksons. I'm going to go Kyler Murray. I know you guys hate Kyler Murray, but Kyler Murray was the number 1 quarterback until he got hurt.
Running back, right.
Yeah, well, he is kind of a running back, but he was number 1 until he got hurt. So, and he was number 1 the year before until he hurt his shoulder. So he's capable.
He was number 1 until the video game came out, and he decided to play some video games instead of studying film.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. And
he goes playing his thumb playing video games this year because he got that clause taken out. So,
all right, Tony, running back, Derrick Henry or Najee Harris?
Heard again. That's exactly right.
Henry. I'm taking Henry. Is there any explanation for that? You want an explanation or what?
Yeah, give me an explanation.
Because he's the man. Now, I know he's getting a little bit older, gets a lot of carries, so on and so forth, but I think they're going to rely on him. And I don't think they want to tear down Najee quite yet. Keep reading more and more about it, and they're speculating they're going to do this, going to do that, but I don't care. It's the king, dude. I think Johnny nails it on the head. He got a lot of rest time last year, and there's a good chance I may draft him myself. Good chance.
Derrick Henry, is that across the board for us all?
I said chance.
Keith says no. Keith says Najee. Why, Keith?
No, I think Najee. I mean, think of the difference maker that Roethlisberger not being there is going to make to Najee. I think them being able to throw the ball down the field is going to open up more lanes for Najee. I think they depend on him a lot. And unlike you guys, I don't think that Henry's going to hold up. If you guys can get 10 games out of him, then maybe there's a chance. But I don't see more than 10 games from him.
Okay. All right. John, wide receiver.
Can I just say this real quick?
Yeah.
So I agree with you that not having Roethlisberger may open up the running lanes. But God, Roethlisberger dumped that ball off a lot to Najee last year, whereas I don't think either of the 2 quarterbacks, Trubisky or whatever that guy's
Pickett.
Pickett. Thank you. Pickett is they're both Yeah, Pickett. Thank you. They're both more mobile, and I think they'll run more. They'll take off more. I don't know that they'll dump it down quite as much. So, yeah, I don't. Is that Pickett? Is that what you were doing there, Tony?
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know if I'm. I don't know. Again, it could work in his favor. It could not work in his favor. Who knows with Najee? But I think King Henry's going to have a chip on his shoulder, and I think he's going to come out and kill people this year.
John, from Pickett to Pittman, Michael Pittman or T. Higgins?
Oh shit. I did not expect that one. That's a tough one. I think Pittman by just a little because he doesn't have to compete with Jamar Chase. Pittman.
Keith?
Higgins all the way.
Higgins all the way. Tony?
Pittman.
I'm going Higgins. I'm going Higgins because Joe Burrow is going to have that season that John's talking about.
Yeah, I do believe it.
I think he's going to
go back and look at the games that Higgins and Chase had. Chase had longer bombs, but Higgins was more precise. More. You
don't have to sell me on Higgins. I love Higgins. He does have to compete with Chase, who is an unbelievably great receiver. Pittman's really kind of the only game in town. He's not Paris. Campbell's is okay, but he's not Chase. And
I'll take Higgins at his ADP versus Chase at his ADP.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, that's
all right. Yeah, Kittle or Waller? John.
Waller.
Tony.
Kittle.
Keith.
Waller.
I like Waller too, guys. I like Waller too. I like that Oakland offense. I like that Vegas offense. It's high octane, maybe. I think Devontae Adams on the outside is going to open things up over the middle for Waller. So I really like that.
Yeah, I agree.
I think he could have less catches, but he'll have more touchdowns.
I agree.
Moves of champions.
All right. Last segment. We're going to talk about the move of champions. And quite simply, we're going to talk about things that we're going to do that's a little different that separates us from the pack so that we're not followers, we're actually leaders in the industry and how we're going to bring home that chip. All right. And I'll give you an example. I'll go first. I have the first overall pick in our big money draft that we're all in. I'm drafting first, and most people would say you're going to just take Jonathan Taylor. And if you look at the numbers, yeah, Jonathan Taylor was RB1 last year, but if you look closer at points per game, Derrick Henry destroyed his ass by 5 points a game, more than Jonathan Taylor. And Christian McCaffrey in his career, when he plays, averages 4 to 5 more points a game than Jonathan Taylor per game. So if you want to be safe and play it like a pussy, sure, take Jonathan Taylor. But this guy, I'm taking Christian McCaffrey with the first pick. And I know Keith's going to laugh at me because of what happened to him last year. But I think this is the year he stays healthy. And if he does, that is a league-winning pick. And I'm ballsy. I'm going Christian McCaffrey. Go ahead, Keith.
I'm so glad you are. I'm so glad me and you can feel the pain together when something happens to him and he goes down again. I'll just laugh. It'll be fun. We can have a beer together.
Poop experienced some of that last year too. So didn't you have him in one of your leagues, Poop?
Yeah. Yep. He an important league. I think that one was my wife's work league. And the whole time for like 3 weeks, I was telling those guys, you get the first pick, you doing Christian McCaffrey. And I was like, nope, I'm not doing it. Nope, I'm not doing it. Nope. And then about 3 days before the draft, I was like, dude, come on. I'm taking him. What am I thinking? I took him. They're like, we knew you were going to do it. Season was over. Thank you. Good night.
That's how I feel about Jonathan Taylor. Everyone's just like, we know you're going to take Jonathan Taylor. And everyone across the world is taking Jonathan Taylor. But I'm just like, I mean, Jonathan Taylor is dealing with Naheem Hines and Matt Ryan likes to dump the ball off. I'm a little worried about that situation. There's no guarantee he's going to repeat what he did last year. And by the way, what he did last year wouldn't have been the RB1 in a lot of seasons. Okay. It was by default. he became the number one running back because Henry got hurt, McCaffrey got hurt, and so forth. So in a normal season, it was a good season, but it wasn't anything spectacular. Okay. So I'm not going to play it safe, guys. That's just not what I do. John, I know you got my back on this.
I agree with you. And as the number 2 pick in that same draft, I probably will also not take Taylor.
Wow.
Whoa. Oh, Poop, tell me you're number 3.
Tony, you still taking Henry?
He is number 3.
Still taking Henry.
I don't know.
I didn't want to hear this, you guys.
I don't know that Henry's going to be there for you.
If you guys are being honest, I mean,
I'm going to tell you this. If I take a running back, it's not going to be Taylor.
Wow.
Which tells you exactly who I want. Which I've not actually been shy about saying this whole time. So
yeah. All right. Who else has like some championship medal moves that they want to talk about? It doesn't have to be moves. It could be strategies or whatever. Go ahead, John.
What I think I do pretty well is speculation. I'm a good speculator in watching the first couple of games and seeing somebody who's kind of on the fringe and starting to get some looks from a quarterback. Like I think bench or the end of your bench is really for capital just to get someone else, right? Like, so I draft people at the end and if they take off, they take off, but I'm quick at pulling the trigger if I think there's somebody who's going to take off. Like I have won leagues because of people that I have picked up after week 2 or week 3, just because I was paying attention. And so the waiver wire is your best friend. And I think all of us who've won leagues, and I think everybody on here has won leagues, we've won because of our waiver wire stuff, not our draft picks for the most part. And so, and I could give Cordell Patterson as a really great example last year. I just kind of felt like week 1, I saw a little something. In week 2, I was like, I'm going to get him. And before that game was over in week 2, I picked up Cordell Patterson and he ended up killing it for me and getting a bunch of points. So
I have an example of that. So do you remember the year when Marshawn Lynch was on the Seahawks and he was struggling?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. He came from Buffalo where he was struggling. He was on Seattle. And about halfway through the season, he wasn't doing shit. And he had been battling injuries. And he was on the waiver wire. And I picked him up. And from there on, he was the RB1. He exploded. That was the year he exploded. He did the earthquake run against the Saints in the playoffs. And I went from basically last place and I finished second, all because of Marshawn Lynch. And I love what you're saying, John. Take a guy with high upside, but that you're not afraid to dump at the end of the draft so that you can work that waiver wire. Have a roster spot available to do that. If you got a bunch of guys that are like pretty good that you don't want to drop, you're not going to be able to work the waiver wire. Yeah.
Right.
All
I
right.
agree.
Tony, Keith, you got a story? You got a strategy for us?
I think on the other end of that is trades. I love trading. Man, if you're in a league with me, you are best be ready to get some trade offers from me because it's happening. They may, Doc, you may look at them and go, what the hell, Keith? What? No way. But man, if I can get one person, just one idiot in the draft, one idiot, just to like click that yes button, that accept button, I'm golden. I'm loving it. So you know what? I'll send out some really bad trades just in the hope of somebody just saying, yeah, I think I like that, and then I'm golden. So I've been known to pull off some really crappy trades. So that's one of the tricks that I use. The other one is like you said, just watching the waiver wire. I think you'd be surprised at how many people just drop some guy after 1 or 2 weeks that you were thinking about drafting, or you were thinking, oh, you know what, if I can get that guy at the right spot, I'll take him. And then he ends up on the waiver wire week 3, and you're just like, oh, I got to pull that trigger. Don't be afraid to pull the trigger.
Yeah, that's a good point.
That's a
Also,
really great point.
So when you throw out these lopsided trade offers, it sometimes gets the conversation started, though. Like, you've done it to me. I mean, but I'll come back and say, no, I ain't going to do that. But I would do this, and maybe I'll come back at you a little bit lopsided in my favor. And then we just kind of figure out that middle ground. And we did work a trade in Dynasty, did we not?
Yeah,
Yep.
you kicked my ass in that trade, but
I don't think so.
honestly, for me, it was. I don't have faith in Debo. You guys probably have a lot more faith in Trey Lance and Debo than I do. So I wanted to get away from that trade, especially since he was a 1-year deal basically. So yeah.
Yeah, it ended up being Debo for Fournette, and I also threw in a second rounder, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Just so that people know what we're talking about. It was a good trade. It was a good trade. All right, Tony, your show, baby.
Yeah, I mean it's all the same stuff. I think we all agree across the board. We may have different ways of doing it, but the waiver wire obviously is important, just like you guys said. I mean, my best years are when I grabbed like Alvin Kamara, like the third week of his rookie season. I won that league. You got to keep an eye out, and you got to be quick to pick and grab these guys. And there's an advantage to not just reading and watching ESPN, but constantly looking at the waiver wire. I mean, you just look at guys, but even if you don't know something, who is this dude? Wide receiver for the Jaguars. You just look them up. You got to be on that waiver wire, and you got to be paying attention. And the past couple of years, I have not been good on the waiver wire. I've not been good with trades, a bunch of things, and I've suffered for it. I've just been busy in other areas. And this year, I told myself I got to go back to my old mottos. One, I found this piece of paper, which is hilarious. This is what I wrote about 4 years ago. It's really cheesy, but I'm going to read it anyways. Look at the schedule, look at the trends, make a big risky trade towards the end. And I put that on my wall right before I moved to this house about a few years ago in Van Nuys. That was my last big trade and my last year where every team I had did pretty well. And I was not following that stuff the past couple seasons. If you get 10 weeks in and you're mediocre, you can look for two things in trades. Look for somebody that is going to be emotional. Okay. You can do what Keith said and kind of sidetrack and be like, hey, I'll give you, Trey Lance for Joe Burrow. People are going to be like, this. But if you get guys that are emotional, listen to message boards, talk shit to them if they're getting aggravated, if they're bitching a lot, if they're making weird decisions on just putting somebody in at flex where you're like, what are you doing, dude? When they normally don't do that. Those are the guys you might want to hit up because they're frustrated with some of their starters. So hopefully they're mad, aggravated, or whatever, and then you're going to hit up with something. They may just hit okay and get rid of a top player, and you're going to steal the deal on a trade. So look for those guys that get pissed off. They're good guys to trade with. But other than that, like I said, 10, 11, 12th week, if you look like you're doing pretty well, but you're struggling to get in those top three positions, look into making a blockbuster trade. Be risky, because if not, you're going to sit there probably in the 5th or 6th position like I do. So take your QB, take your number one wide receiver, and try and flip them and see what you can put together and go for it the last 6 or 7 weeks of the season.
Yeah, I think one thing Chuck does really good is he trades in the first couple of weeks for a star that he believes somebody's already given up on after those first couple. Like he's done it a couple of times. Like he got Allen last year for Austin Eckler, right? I mean, wasn't that the trade? Something like that?
Yeah, pretty much. I got Robinson too, but he didn't work out great.
So I do think people, especially inexperienced people, give up real easy after that first couple of weeks, which to me are not indicative of the actual fantasy season. So many people start off slow and then they end up building because nobody plays in the preseason. So those first couple of weeks, but some people panic, like their early draft picks, like, oh my God, they're not taking off. I need to work a trade. Chuck takes advantage of those people and trades somebody that he feels isn't trending in the right direction and trades for that person. And it almost always works out for him.
Appreciate it. Man, John said something nice about me. Woo, buttering me up. He doesn't want me
to say nice things about you.
He's trying to encourage me to take Christian McCaffrey so he can get Taylor, I think.
I'm not taking Taylor. Chuck, you might as well get ready to take Taylor.
Nah, not going to do it. I'm taking McCaffrey, boys, unless he gets hurt in the preseason.
Taking JJ?
No.
Taking JJ or Cup, Johnny?
I'm definitely not taking Cup. I am thinking about there's a running back that I want more than I want Taylor. There's a quarterback I'm actually considering drafting very early.
Ooh, I like it.
And then there's a receiver. If I draft a receiver, it would be Justin Jefferson. So
yeah,
and I could say that now because I know who Chuck's drafting. So I have 3 draft strategies right now in this league, and I think all 3 of them could happen the way I think they'll happen. I'm just not positive. So.
And if you notice, it's not what people say you should do. And that's not going to win you the league. If you just do chalk, you're not going to win the league, man. Got to take risks. And I think all 4 of us know that we need to do that. We need to be risky. We all take risks, and it usually pays off. Sometimes you take a risk and it fails and you don't win, but you're not going to win being mediocre either. You got to take risks. So that's my biggest advice to all you out there. If you feel something really deep in your heart, like I did about Peyton Manning back in 2015, I took him with the #1 overall pick because I knew he was going to set all kinds of records, and people were laughing at me, but I took him one, and it paid off in every league. So you just got to be ballsy. Do we have any other tips, any strategies for the championship merit, anything?
No, but can I ask you guys a question on that?
Yeah.
Which might be sort of like a strategy, but when you guys look at Jonathan Taylor and he's going #1. So let's say you guys draft him and he has a subpar, pretty good, but he's not really like the #1 pick. And then somebody next to you, #2, #3, whatever, takes Christian McCaffrey when you're like, dude, he's going to get hurt. Like, I still think he's going to be in and out. Mm-hmm. Change my mind a little bit, but and that person takes Christian McCaffrey. Like, let's say Chuck takes one, and he goes off the way old Christian McCaffrey is supposed to do. Mm-hmm. I guess what I'm going to say is my heart will be broken and it will disturb me the whole year.
What?
For that I skipped on something like that. But if he gets hurt, let's say, and you still take Jonathan Taylor, this isn't really making any sense, but if you still take Jonathan Taylor and he has an okay season, I guess what I'm trying to say is that unless Taylor, like the one or two draft spots totally take off, if they don't take off, it is the most disappointing season for me. And that happens to me all the time. So I like to think outside the box a little bit and be risky and be like, well, maybe I should just take Dalvin Cook, because if he fails, I asked for it. But if I take Jonathan Taylor and he fails, that's bullshit. I'm blaming Jonathan Taylor. If that's making any sense.
I've got 12, and I think I'm going to get Taylor.
You might.
Listen, Tony, let me answer your question. If I were to take McCaffrey and Taylor outscores him and McCaffrey does get hurt, I'm going to be okay with that. But if I take Jonathan Taylor, knowing what I believe about McCaffrey, and McCaffrey goes ballistic, and Taylor does fine, but McCaffrey scores more points, it will crush me.
I guess that's my point. Yeah.
And see, let me explain something to you. Jonathan Taylor, we know a lot. We play in a lot of leagues. In those leagues, the people that had Jonathan Taylor, did they win your leagues? Because they won none of my leagues. But I'll tell you who did win a lot of leagues, the guy that got Cooper Kupp. The guy that got Cooper Kupp won a lot of leagues because he was so much of a difference maker.
100 points more in our league.
Yeah, that's the guy you want on your team. It's not the safe play. It's the guy that could blow out the rest of the competition. That's why people take Travis Kelce early. And, that has worked. I don't think it'll work this year. But what I'm saying is you want to get that elite guy, that one guy. Like Debo last year, I got him in the 9th round. He exploded. That's why I won. It wasn't because I had, Nick Chubb or whatever, or Aaron Rodgers. No. You want that guy that can explode onto the scene. So you're looking for that. Right. The best I can explain it.
Yep.
John looks like he's deep in thought.
Okay, so who you taking, John?
I'll sure let you know in a couple weeks.
Yeah.
All right. This was a good show, guys. I appreciate your efforts. Johnny freaking Ballgame.
Reaper, always an excellent job of running this thing, man. Love it.
Thank you. Tony Sir Poops a lot. Thanks for coming on yet again.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
And it was good to see Keith, the fantasy antagonist. It was good to have you back on the show, brother.
You got to come back on every now and then. Come on, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
If you like tonight's show, John, what should they do?
Hit that button.
Which
Hit that
one?
The like
Like
button, bell button, all of the buttons. Hit every
Subscribe
button.
button. The notification bell. Hit it all. And throw
Comment in there.
That's right. Do it all. We will be back next week because we do this every single week. And we'll see you next week. And we're getting close, folks. The drafts are starting. And by next week, I think most people will have at least started 1 or 2 drafts. So we'll have some more stuff to talk about. And maybe we'll do a draft on the air in the next couple weeks, huh, guys? Sound fun?
Yep.
Do
All
it.
right. See you next week.
All right.
Aloha.
Bye, guys.
Tune in next week for another episode of Fantasy Sports Island.